This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace.
Starting a new year is a great time to set our intentions for the year ahead, whether that's for our photography or any other creative pursuit we're involved in. It's a good time to take a step back, work out what our goals are for the year, what we want to achieve with our photography, and maybe even remind ourselves why we picked up the camera in the first place. So while everyone else is making, and let's be honest, probably already breaking their New Year's resolutions for the year, I wanted to share a thought that I had with you about my own photography and filmmaking and writing for the year ahead, and how this year I really want to keep my goals and motivation around the things that I make as simple as possible. And I'm sharing it with you in the hopes that it'll inspire you to think about your own motivations for the coming year as well. Now stay with me on this one. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. And I'm well aware that a lot of you won't be religiously or spiritually inclined at all. But I want to tell you a quick story to make a really important point. Back in my seminary days, I remember reading an old book called The Practice of the Presence of God, which was first published in 1895 by Father Joseph de Beaufort. And in it, he's collected the teachings of a Carmelite friar who lived back in the 1600s, whose name was Brother Lawrence. At the core, Brother Lawrence's teaching was this really simple idea that work could be seen as worship if done with love, no matter how small the task. He believed that God regards not the greatness of the work, but the love with which it is performed. Over the centuries, there have been tales passed down about Brother Lawrence sweeping the steps outside the monastery where he served in Paris, and crowds forming, because apparently the care and devotion that he gave to the simplest tasks was worth watching. It was said that whether he was washing dishes or changing the bedding of the sick in the infirmary or even cleaning toilets, he didn't see any task as beneath him, and he took it all as an opportunity to express his love to his God and to his fellow man. The example of Brother Lawrence has always stayed with me, and I can only imagine for myself what presence and care he must have brought to the simplest and most menial tasks to turn them from something that looks so mundane on the outside to something that's worth watching, that becomes a spectator sport. I would have loved to have seen it for myself. If we're really honest with ourselves, it's very hard to keep our photography or any artistic pursuit that we're engaged in just about enjoying the work for its own sake. The minute we start to get a handle on what we're doing, we start to daydream about where this work might take us one day and what it could give us. We quickly start imagining things like internet fame or published books or exhibitions or awards or crowds of adoring fans or being paid lots of money to do that creative thing that we do. And that thing that we started doing can fast in our heads just start to become a vehicle to get a bunch of other stuff instead of doing that thing just for the love of it. There are a couple of problems with this, and the first is that I think if you start to make work just to get more attention or to try and get money around what you do, I think most often you will end up making forgettable, boring, and safe work. Take Instagram or any other photo sharing platform online as an example. If you start trying to make work just to crack the algorithm and get attention around what you do, your work will look like everybody else's who's also trying to crack that algorithm. You'll be making samey stuff because you think it's what people want to see, and your work will get lost anyway. Plus, if you do end up just making trendy work, trends change. So in a year's time, it will probably be very forgettable. And the second problem is that if you make work that's just designed to try and get you as much attention and as much money for yourself as you can, people smell that motivation. And nobody online follows artists whose work just feels like thinly veiled self-promotion. You can tell the difference when you see a photographer's work online and you can feel that they're just trying to get popular, but they don't really care about the work that you're making. So don't make the mistake in thinking that anybody else out there is any less perceptive than you are. I want to challenge you about this stuff. If you take a look at the goals that you have around your photography or whatever your creative outlet is, how many of your goals, if you're honest with yourself, are actually more about the outcomes from your creative output or the things that you want to get out of it? And how many of your goals are actually planning to do that work that you can't wait to get stuck into? How many of your goals are tied to things like performance and metrics and money? And how many of your goals are more about how you can enjoy your photography as much as possible for its own sake? I guess what I'm asking you to do here is get super honest with your own why, your reasons for doing it in the first place, because answering that question is going to determine what your work looks like and how much you actually enjoy the journey. Let me be clear though, I don't actually think there's anything wrong with wanting to build a following around your work. I've said it before on this channel that I think all art completes its cycle when it's appreciated by somebody else. I just don't think that chasing that attention and compromising your work in the process is the way to get there. This is why I mention an obscure Carmelite monk who lived and died over 300 years ago, because I think his life teaches us something really important, that if you want to attract people to the thing that you're doing, and it was completely unintentional in his case, he wasn't trying to draw a crowd, but he showed us that people will come and take notice if you do what you do just for the love of it. It comes down to how compelling it is to watch someone relish a task, to put their heart and soul into it. One of my favorite books of all time is a book on spirituality called Blue Like Jazz, written by Donald Miller. And I think I've shared this quote on this channel but years ago, but it's really apt in this case as well. This is how he starts the book. I've never liked jazz music because jazz music doesn't resolve. But I was outside the Baghdad Theatre in Portland one night when I saw a man playing the saxophone. I stood there for 15 minutes and he never opened his eyes. After that, I liked jazz music. Sometimes you have to watch somebody love something before you can love it yourself. It's as if they're showing you the way. I know this is true for me. I sometimes get asked, what other sort of YouTube channels do you watch? And the answer might surprise you. One of the channels I love watching is just an old man who makes Japanese pottery by hand using old wooden tools and techniques and mechanical turntables. And I find it fascinating to watch. And another one is a guy who sits there and repairs old watches from families who send them in because they've been broken. They're usually heirlooms. And we never see his face. It's just a close-up of the watch pieces and his hands working and his voiceover. But his passion for what he does, I find so captivating. I watch another channel where a guy makes clay figurines of popular fictional characters in his garage at home, and another of a woman who bakes all sorts of beautiful creative breads in her home kitchen. I'm sure that in any of these examples, whether it's pottery or sculpting or baking or watchmaking, that there are people out there, artists, who are incredible at what they do, so much so that their work goes in galleries or high-end stores. But for me, I find these at-home artisans who are just doing it simply at home for the genuine love of it. I find their enthusiasm so much more compelling than visiting a gallery. More than that, I have a theory that most people follow the artist more than they follow the actual art itself. They want to feel the journey that a human being is on and feel their enthusiasm for the creative art form they're a part of. Take photography, for example. Most people, if they see a photograph they really like online, they might like it, but they'll probably just move on. However, if they feel like they get to know the person behind the camera and can feel their passion for photography, there's every chance that they'll want to keep up with what that artist does off into the future. Because what's more attractive than watching someone do what they do for the sheer love of it? Let's be honest, we live in quite a cynical time right now. We all see photographers who jump onto platforms like Threads, for example, just to leave controversial points of view and hoping to get people arguing in the comments section underneath. Or worse, photographers who go onto other people's work just to troll in the comments section, hoping that they'll get some attention back on their own work. Negativity and cynicism are quite trendy, but we also know that nobody follows overtly negative people for that long, because we soon find them quite tiring. I think that genuinely loving what you do is an infinitely better way of drawing people towards your work, but it does have to be genuine. We have to resist the temptation to just try and look like we're enjoying it as a marketing tactic. People will sniff out the difference. Your passion for what you do has to be real. And if it isn't, if you find yourself engaged with something like photography and it's just making you more frustrated than anything else, and you find yourself getting little joy out of it, maybe it's time to think about doing something else, something that you are genuinely passionate about. So as you think about this year ahead and the plans that you've made, I wonder if you can take that drive for fame or fortune and put it to one side and replace it instead with plans to maximize the enjoyment around this thing that you do, whether it's photography or anything else, and then learn to communicate that genuine enthusiasm you have through your work. Don't do it as a trick because people will see through it. And you don't have to change your personality either. It's true that introverts and extroverts communicate their enthusiasms in very different ways. The only thing that matters is that it's genuine and you communicate it your way. That attitude is infectious and mesmerizing. Like watching a jazz musician close her eyes as she plays her saxophone, getting lost in the music, or watching an older Japanese man using old techniques to carefully make beautiful pottery, or watching a monk 300 years ago lovingly sweep the steps outside his monastery as crowds form around him. So as you look forward, maybe it's a really good time to get honest with yourself and to search your motives and to work out what's really driving you. Do you really love photography? Or are you just using it as a vehicle to get something else? You have to remind yourself of why you picked up a camera in the first place and try and recapture some of that early love you had for making photographs. I would imagine that if you start making work out of this space, that more and more people will be drawn to what you're doing because they'll be able to feel that you're doing it for the genuine love of it. And that is one of the most compelling things in the world. Just before I go, I want to remind you that if you're looking for a way to actively support what I do here on this channel, the best way you can do that is by picking up a copy of my Parable magazine. There are now 6 editions available. Each one features writing and photography around a theme. And the 7th edition is now at the printers as we speak. And I'm really proud of this one. It's a selection of street photography, and I talk a little bit about finding my voice in street photography, but it also speaks a lot about loneliness and how we struggle with loneliness in our culture and how we can deal with it on an individual level. So look out for that. It might actually already be available as you're watching this video. You can purchase each magazine in 2 formats, one like this, A4 size on beautiful uncoated matte paper, or you can pick up a digital copy which is a PDF file and an MP3 file of the audio of me reading the magazine to you. Either way, it goes a long way to supporting this channel. I will leave links down below so you can go along and check it out. And lastly, thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. If you're looking for a new website or a domain, they're a fantastic option. I've used them myself as my website of choice for over a decade now. One of the best things I've found about Squarespace are their e-commerce functionality, because I always knew as a photographer that I would want to sell my own work from my website, whether that was prints or books or my magazines. But if I'm honest, I was always a little bit intimidated about how it would actually work and taking people's money and making sure I got their details all correct, and would I be able to run it myself? It only takes me a few minutes to load up a new product, to write a description and set a price and to load up a few photographs. And then when those orders start coming in, I can see where they're meant to be going through, and as they're shipped off, the customer on the other end will receive an automated email letting them know that their package is on the way. Plus, in the back end of the website and even on the app on my phone, I can get regular reports to see how sales are going, which products are selling better than others, and I can be making adjustments on the way. It couldn't be simpler.
Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and go to squarespace.com/Sean Tucker to get 10% off your first purchase.